Hello and welcome to Kingston Now. I'm Jimmy Buff. Election Day is November 8th, and while it seems far away, the political machine is already in high gear. In May, Kingston Democrats picked Hayes Clement as their choice for mayor, and in June, the Republicans tapped Andy Turco-Levin as their choice. However, both picks are facing primary challenges in September, and here to talk about that are the two people who are leading the charge for their respective parties. On the Republican side, it's Tony Sinagra, and for the Democrats, it's Frank Cardinale. And with us now is Tony Sinagra. Hi, Tony.
Hi, Jim. How you doing?
I'm okay. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for inviting.
Tell me about the nominating process at the convention in June. How did that work?
Well, how that works is it starts long before June, and then anyone that's interested in running for mayor or any office, they contact the city chairman, and then we go out sometime looking for different people we may think that would be a good candidate for mayor. This year we didn't have to do that because we had 4 people step forward. Then we go into at our regular monthly meetings, we present the names and the whole committee listens to them, and they have a little time to speak, and then I put it off for 30 days until the convention, and then we go into the convention, and the party, all the committee people vote on who they want to be our candidate for mayor. And this year it was Andy Turco-Levin who took it by a large majority, and that's the end of the process. Then as far as concerned, that person is the designee of the Republican Party to run for mayor. Then anyone has the opportunity to file petitions and go into a primary against that person. And that's what happened this year, was that 3 other people filed petitions. What they have to do is go out and get 5% of the enrolled voters of the Republican Party and get their signatures on a ballot, on the petitions, and submit them to the Board of Elections. And if they're right, then they have the opportunity to go into the primary in September 13th.
So you guys, the convention picks Andy Turco-Levin.
Right.
What is it that you think that everyone liked about her as a potential candidate?
Well, I think the bottom line was that she was the most electable candidate out of everyone was there, and that was strictly the choice of the committee. It was not the choice of the chairman. It was not the choice of a hand-picked few people. It was open to the whole convention, and that entitles all the committee people in the city of Kingston to cast their ballot. And when they did, they just felt as though Andy was the most qualified and the most electable person in November, which is the big point that you look for, is who can get elected in November.
Does a primary complicate things for a particular party?
Oh, by all means. Mm-hmm. By all means, because right now you're not concentrating on the November election, which you should be. You're concentrating on the primary coming up, which is in September. And most times in the primaries, the candidates will put a dig to one another, which the opposite party could use when you come back to the November election. And I don't like primaries. I can try to convince my people not to go into a primary, but they decided they wanted to do it. So in America, this is a free country, and you have to let them do what they want to do.
The other 3 candidates for mayor, Republican mayor, are Richard Cahill Jr., who ran last time out against James Satile,
right.
Ron Polacco,
right.
and Gene Jacobs.
Right.
What can you say about each of those candidates?
At this point, they're not my candidate, and I don't have anything to say about them, because the only candidate that I have right now is the Republican candidate, which is Andy Turco-Levin. And until the September primary, that's the only candidate that I'm really interested in or promoting.
You don't have any primaries for aldermen in September?
No.
So you've got a nice slate of people that you're fully behind.
Yes, yes.
Can you talk about some of those folks?
Oh, yes. We got the first ward, Al Tietzel, who was coming back, who was the alderman. And then, as everyone knows, he had some unfortunate problems in his family, losing a couple sons to death. And he wanted to take a few years off, and he did. And now he wants to come back in. And the second ward, this year, I went out and looked for a lot of young new people, because they were referring to the Republican Party as the old people party. And they were right. There was no young people in it. And this year I went out and promoted and got as many young people as I can.
This is Kingston Now, and we're with Tony Sinagra, Committee Chairman for the Ulster County Republican Party. Next, it's the other side of the coin with Frank Cardinale for the Kingston Democrats. Welcome back to Kingston Now. Frank Cardinale is a lifelong Kingston resident, former alderman, and head of the Kingston Democrats. Hi, Frank.
How you doing, Jim?
Good. So what are the day-to-day duties of being in charge of the Democrat Party for Kingston?
Essentially to facilitate the process of nominating and electing candidates, essentially. That includes a lot, and it also includes putting out fires, keeping things civil, finding the best candidates that you can find to run for office, and then just helping them get elected.
How is that keeping them civil thing? That seems like fun.
It's some work, but I think we're doing a pretty good job. We have, as you know, we have no less than 4 primaries for aldermen and for the mayor's position, and I think they're doing a pretty good job of keeping it civil, and I'm proud of them for that.
Tony Sinagra told us a little while ago about the nominating process for the Republicans. Is it the same for the Democrats, your convention?
No, not really. The convention is essentially, but I believe that the entire committee, not a select group of people from the committee to interview people and make a recommendation. We had candidates that were interested address the entire committee several months ago. And the committee got an opportunity to hear what they had to say, some of the ideas that they had, and they weighed the candidates based upon whether they thought they were electable, but more importantly, based upon what they thought they could accomplish if they became mayor. And then the committee as a whole voted at the convention, and they made a decision to select Hayes Clement as the official candidate. And in Tony's situation with the Republicans, part of the process is if someone feels that they are a better candidate, they should have an opportunity to run, they can take the primary route, which is what happened in the Democratic Party this year.
There are, though, some challenges to your pick for mayor, who is Hayes Clement.
Right.
And so how is that different than the way the Republicans do it? How do those people say, well, I still want to be mayor?
Well, in our case, it's one with the Republicans, it's ×2. So we have it a little bit easier, but it's not that easy in any case, because it has a tendency to split or fracture some of the party. And one of the responsibilities I have is to, based upon the outcome of the primary, is to unite the Democrats, to unite them behind the candidates that have emerged from that primary. It's a little bit easier said than done, but that's what we have to do.
Can you tell me about Hayes Clement? He's a relative newcomer to the political scene in Kingston.
Yeah, I believe he's been here 6 or 7 years. He's an accomplished and very successful businessman in his own right, and still does some business consulting here in Kingston out of his house on West Chestnut Street, I believe it is. He was able to convince, both by how he performed as an alderman, a one-term alderman, and by the ideas, his background, and I think as a total package, convinced the committee people in the convention that he was the best candidate, and he came out of that convention with a margin of 2-1.
Who are the endorsed candidates for aldermen for the Democrats in Kingston?
Okay, we have almost all of them are what we term official candidates, those that came out of the convention. We did have some open slots out of the convention, some of which are being challenged in primaries. But the official candidates out of the convention were all of the incumbents, first of all, Tom Hoffe in the 2nd Ward, Charlie Landy in the 3rd Ward, Shirley Whitlock in the 4th, Bob Sehner in the 8th Ward. And we found candidates. We had candidates nominated, new candidates nominated, but we had to find 2 additional candidates for wards that no one had stepped forward. And since we have a full slate of aldermanic candidates this year.
How do you fill those empty slots? How do you go looking for those people?
We work through the ward committees first. You know, I believe we have very strong ward chairs and ward committees, and I work with those committees. I want them to go out and find the candidate they think best represents their ward, and I think in almost all cases they've done that. And as chairman, I work with the ward chairs, and I put a lot of faith and in those ward chairs, and I back them up as much as I can. And they represent the committee, and it's a committee vote that they use to select the candidate to run in that ward.
In the run-up to the primaries, will you have conversations with the people who are challenging the candidates, the official candidates, and try and encourage them to maybe see the party's overall stated view as a primary thing?
Yeah, and we do. There's ongoing dialogue, not as much as I would like, but we all believe that in the end, whoever emerges from those primaries is the candidate that everyone is going to work for and endorse.
You're watching Kingston Now. Coming up, we'll talk with both Tony Sinagra and Frank Cardinale about the big issues facing Kingston and about what each party hopes to do about them. Welcome back to Kingston Now. Joining us on the program today is Tony Sinagra of the Republican Party here in Kingston and Frank Cardinale of the Democratic Party, and you're sitting next to each other on the couch civilly. We don't have to separate you.
No, not at all.
No way.
You guys are actually friends. You've known each other for a long time.
Sure have.
Yes.
Which is an indication of the civility of Kingston politics. As an observer, it doesn't seem to be as rancorous as it does on a national level.
The campaign hasn't started yet, the true campaign, but I really don't think it will be. I think we have good candidates running, have the best intentions, and I know Tony has nothing but the best intentions. We've been friends for a long time, and we're going to remain no matter what happens in November.
And of
Yes.
course, each of you believe that your party has the best intentions for the city.
That's right. And right now it is. We're just out, both parties promoting their candidate. And come November, the general public will pick the candidate that will represent the city for the next 4 years. And I hope it'll be my candidate. Frank hopes it'll be his candidate. But whoever it will be, I know they'll work with us, or we will work with them like we have in the past. This is not a national thing where you're out cutthroating. These are people you meet every day on the street. You have coffee with them, and like I always say, there's politics all summer. Come November, the election's over, you go back as friends.
What are some of the big issues facing the city in the viewpoint of the Republicans, Tony?
Crime, taxes, and the condition of our roads. And I think we have to get more businesses into the city. I would like to see a lot of more smaller businesses come in. I'm not looking for these multi-billion giants come in and hire 10,000 people and then leave the city. I would love to see a lot of small 100 people employed in each place and have a lot of them around, because that's one of the big things that will help reduce our taxes. It'll make it a better living conditions here for the people that are living here. Because the old saying is, you know, you follow the dollar. If the dollar is brought into the city, then the small businesses and everyone will survive, and then everybody is happy. Nobody's complaining when they got money coming in and they're living comfortably.
Is there a plan to address those big issues?
Oh, yes, yes, there is. Andy has quite a few plans. She hasn't put out a lot of them right now, and I take it for the opposite party is doing the same thing, because we're kind of waiting until after the primary, because you really don't want to put everything out now since you're running against some of your own people. So after the September primary, you'll see a lot of changes coming in and a lot of good ideas being built.
Frank, what are some of the issues that the Democrats think are most important?
I think that generally everyone feels the same way about conditions in the city right now. But we look at not just the problems, we look at the potential that the city has. And we look at finding ways to tap into that potential, to do what we can to grow the economy, particularly. Quality of life, you've heard that probably 1,000 times already. Everyone talks about it. And it's an all-encompassing thing. It has to do with jobs. It has to do with crime and safety and the conditions of the streets. All of that really needs to be addressed. It's not a short-term problem. You need money to do those things. So we think growing the economy is probably foremost. When there is money then to do things that need to be done. And right now we just don't have that money. Secondly is really about accountability at City Hall. And particularly, people don't like paying taxes, but they especially don't like paying taxes if they don't feel they're getting something in return. And that really needs to be addressed. We have to show people that government is accountable to them. We have to lay out specific plans for things that we're going to do. And we have to do our own report card when things are effectively done and when they're not.
You're watching Kingston Now. More with Tony Sinagra and Frank Cardinale in a moment. Welcome back to Kingston Now. Joining us again, Frank Cardinale and Tony Sinagra. Now, we've had a Democratic mayor for almost 20 years in Kingston. Is that a blessing or a curse for the Democrats?
Well, I think people like to put elected officials all into one category. If you're a Democrat, you're a Democrat. This is small town politics. All Democrats are not created equal. Everybody operates a little bit differently. Everyone has a different idea of how to solve problems, how to approach problems. And it's not an easy job. And I think the current mayor, Jim Satile, has taken a lot of knocks for things that weren't done, but not given credit for a lot of things that he has done. He's had the most difficult job, I think, than any mayor in my lifetime in the city. And it isn't going to get any easier. And this election is really about the city being probably at a crossroads right now, where people in this city, Democrats, Independents, Republicans, Conservatives, whatever party affiliation they're in, have to look at these candidates very, very closely, not by the label behind their name, Republican or Democrat, but by what they can bring and what they talk about, and their background, their ability to do the things that they say they want to do. Going to have to look extremely close this year, more so than ever before. And hopefully they'll look at it and see that the Democratic candidate is the person, I believe, that is best equipped to take the reins of the city over the next 4 years.
Tony, what do you think about what Frank just said?
Well, I think Frank hit the nail on the head, except for his last statement, where I feel as though the Republican candidate is the best candidate to run the city for the next 4 years. Frank hit the nail right on the head. Yes, the Democrats were in for 20 years. One thing you have to take into consideration is that most inner cities are very heavily Democratic. And that's one of the reasons the Republicans has had a hard problem of getting elected in the city of Kingston. And I think that the times will change this time because people are very upset and very fed up. And as Frank said, Yes, Jimmy Satile had a very, very hard time down there at running the city because the times were just against him as far as there's no federal money coming in, taxes are going sky high, the unions are getting all the benefits, and he had to deal with all this. And he did have a hard job. And I really say I feel sorry for the next mayor, and sometimes I wonder why anybody would even want to be the next mayor of the situation the way it is today. Because it's going to take a really outstanding person and an outstanding job to correct a lot of these problems and get them back on track with the city. Because the city has deteriorated an awful lot. And I think we have to get on board and take all this into consideration. And I feel as though Andy will be able to do the job very well and put the city back where it belongs. So.
Gentlemen, well said on both parts. That's our show for today. We'd like to thank both Frank Cardinale and Tony Sinagra for joining us and remind you to register to vote. You need to be registered by August 19th to vote in the September 13th primaries and by October 14th to vote in the November 8th general election. This is Kingston Now. I'm Jimmy Buff. See you next time.